Welcome back to RE/MAX Real Estate Insights. I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider. According to a Pew Research survey, 2019 is the year that millennials will become the largest living adult generation. At some point this year, Pew is saying that millennials will swell to 73 million. Baby boomers are going to decline to about 72 million. However, both groups still represent big buying power. That's especially true in the real estate industry. And while much attention's been focused on millennials, baby boomers continue to have significant buying power, and they continue to influence the market. They tend to have some financial stability, and they want a home that's right for them. That may not be a retirement community. Joining me now is an expert in working with baby boomers and seniors, Randy Miller. He's an associate broker with RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Hi, Jeanette. Thanks a million. It's great to be here.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. So I think when the time comes for boomers to sell what's been that family home, and they're trying to decide where they want to live next, that discussion can tend to lead, I think, to the condo versus maybe a ranch single family home. I think one of the aspects that tends to be attractive on condos is that relief, at least, peace of mind, thinking I don't have to be the exterior maintenance person anymore.
Right.
But that relief comes with the price. So let's talk a little bit about the cost associated with moving into a condo. Can you share with us what they need to be aware of?
Absolutely. And one thing about condos, of course, they vary that association fee depending on the area, depending on how much work has been done, depending the size of them, how much they're going to cost and how much they're going to cover. But association fees versus contracting out those services, if you own a single family home, you just really have to balance those out. Most condo associations tend to be pricey, and having a trusted contracting source to handle your snow, lawn maintenance, and things like that on your home as you get older, you just need to balance those out. But condo associations, they cover all your exterior maintenance, they cover your road repairs, they cover typically your roof, sometimes your windows, sometimes not, sometimes your doors, sometimes not. It really varies. And and also then depends if a condo association is managed well or not, because if you have a large assessment and maybe the roofs have to be replaced and they haven't prepared for that from a fiscal standpoint, then you could be hit with a large assessment, and which can be substantial. And one thing about condo fees that you always have to remember is they never go down. I don't think I've ever seen any go down in price. They typically will always go up.
So like everything else in life.
Absolutely.
What comes up does not come down from that perspective. So again, you just need to know that, because chances are whether you stay in a single family or you move to a condo, at some point in time you're going to be paying somebody to help with those types of services. It's just trying to do your homework and try to get a real good handle on the cost comparison.
Yes, and you couldn't put it any better that as we age, more and more of those things are going to be taken care of by someone else, and you have to plan for that.
And I think the other thing is the reality that even if you have family in the area, it's unrealistic to think family can ultimately pick up the entire slack. Even with everybody having best intentions, that's probably not going to happen.
You're right, and we see that so often. You couldn't have put that any better. Everybody has busy lives, especially if you have kids, and there's travel soccer, and there's travel hockey, and there's their own yards. And
there's this thing called work.
And work even, work tends to throw a wrench in that too. So you're absolutely right. And family, you really can't plan on that.
All righty. So besides the fees that are involved, what are some other things that should be getting considered? I think one of the things you kind of hinted at was maybe some parking challenges that people aren't expecting.
Yes. And many times, Jeanette, and especially if someone is moving into a condo under a stressful or sudden condition, maybe it was a health challenge, there's no time for people to really think about those long-term ramifications. But if a man is going to lose his garage and possibly his pole barn by moving into a condo, that's a huge adjustment. Storage space, if he likes doing the exterior maintenance, that's sometimes can take a toll on someone. And the parking is really a big thing, because a lot of family gatherings may be held at the kids' homes, but if not, that first family gathering comes along and, oh gosh, we've only got parking for 4 cars, and there's 8 family members that are coming with different cars. So some of those things, unless they're planning for it, comes as a surprise. But that is really that's a perfect example of one of the responsibilities for us as a real estate professional, and that is to educate and, as I say, inoculate our clients to the potential challenges and changes that they're going to go through.
And try to make sure you're thinking of the things they may not be.
You bet.
Beyond those, there's some long-term considerations that you're saying folks should consider regarding a condo, and that has to be whether it's going to hold or lose its value. That a condo may be a little different than a single-family home. Can you shed a little light on that for us?
Yes, and historically, usually whenever the market adjusts, and of course we saw this in 08 and 09, is condos typically are the first to go down in price and the slower to recover. They've recovered pretty darn well in our recovery years that we've had for about the last 6 now, and I really think the baby boomers could completely change that philosophy moving forward because there's so many of us. And so I think we may not see the dramatic changes in value once we go into another dip in the market, which inevitably we always will. And
we've been on a really good run for the last 10 plus years, so there's something that's going to have to come sooner or later.
We know it's coming. It's going to happen at some point.
Well, we're talking with Randy Miller from RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston about some of the pros and cons for boomers that may be considering a condo as part of their downsizing options. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about how boomers are driving a renewed popularity in a certain style home and some other issues affecting them. Did you know every 30 seconds a RE/MAX agent helps someone find their perfect place? Go to RE/MAXRealEstateInsights.com to find properties or an agent near you. Stay tuned for more RE/MAX Real Estate Insights coming up here on 760 WJR. Back with RE/MAX Real Estate Insights on WJR, and we're talking about baby boomers and how they continue to impact the real estate market. We were saying earlier that according to a Pew Research study, 2019 is going to be this magical year where millennials are anticipated to overtake the boomers as the largest adult population. However, while millennials are a big buying force, boomers aren't stepping aside. They've got the financial stability and ability to remain in the housing market. I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider, and back with me is Randy Miller, who's an associate broker with RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston. So, Randy, in 2018, according to National Association of Realtors, 32% of all home sales were done by boomers, and I suspect, that number, they were buying. 32% of the buyers were boomers. I suspect that number may surprise some people because I think the image we have is boomers aren't moving. They're kind of staying where they are, and I guess that plays into a question I have for you. Is that part of the reason for the tight inventory, that boomers are staying in their family homes and they're not moving at the age that maybe their generation before them, and they're staying active longer. They're working later in life, so they're staying in those big family homes. Do you see that dynamic? We
do see that, and there's actually a couple of reasons for that, and I'm glad you brought it up. The boomers, we came from a very frugal generation. My parents were kids growing up in the Great Depression, so and I don't say that as a dig towards millennials or Gen Xers by any means. It's just a totally
it is what it is.
It is what it is, and so. We were raised in there were 5 of us in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000-square-foot ranch home with no basement. It was on a crawl space, and which my dad built himself on weekends and nights with the help of my mom. And so when boomers now, they just don't see the need to move as much, to change their home that they've lived in for so long, as much as millennials and Gen Xers may. They're much more mobile. So I believe that has contributed to the shortage, and also the fear of not being able to find a new home has kept baby boomers in place because of the listing shortage that we've had now for about the last 6 years. Yeah. They're staying put just because it's a double-edged sword. They're afraid they can't find another home to move into, so they don't want to sell with the fear of being homeless.
And their house is probably the way they want it right now. They've had the time, and whatnot to make the upgrades that they want. It's pretty comfortable. I might have a couple of extra bedrooms, but you know what? Life's pretty good.
You bet.
And so that's contributing. Now, let's that's not always the case. Boomers will eventually, in many cases, decide to downsize, right. And when that day comes, because I envision boomers of kind of being the champions of the colonial 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2.5, bathhouse. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my vision. Mm-hmm. The day comes that they do want to downsize and right size. What's the popular floor plan that they're looking for, or style of home that they're looking for these days?
Well, of course, a ranch home is the most preferred. And because of the demand by the boomers especially, that's why we're seeing so many instances of ranch homes selling for more than colonials in a lot of different neighborhoods. And so
interesting.
It really is. It has just been crazy to see this happen. And where you're talking about sometimes the home is half the size of the larger colonial for selling for more money. And another option for boomers, and that's what we tell clients, is a 1.5 story.
Okay.
A 1.5 story usually always has a master suite on the first floor, usually 2 additional bedrooms on the second floor, which are usually on the other side of the house. So you've got usually a vaulted great room separating the two, which I call the Great Divide. So because we say 1.5 stories are a great option for staying in place longer, because when grandchildren start coming home to visit and you've got crying babies and things like that at night, they're on the other end of the house up above, and you're not going to hear them as much. So you've still got most of the things on the first floor for your everyday living, but you've still got the space for the kids to come home.
So kind of a perfect combination, if you will.
In my opinion, I love 1.5 stories. I really do for that.
And I like how you put that. Is because they still want family to visit. They want to have the space to
most
host.
Do, yes.
Yeah, most. There's always a caveat there, but I mean most do, and that seems to be a really good, I guess, compromise. So with either a ranch or this 1.5 story, as you're recommending, being in high demand, are you seeing builders addressing this need, like from a new construction perspective? Because I would assume if you're seeing a higher price tag on ranches than colonials, there's not a supply to meet demand. So do you see anything coming on the new construction end to address this?
We're finally starting to see that. And we can certainly sympathize with builders, because ranch homes are more expensive to build. Of course, for all the obvious reasons, the landscaping, the basement size, the excavating, and larger roofs. And so that's why they've always built colonial homes, because they more bang for your buck for them. But we are starting to see they are catching on. And now you'll start to see in some new developments a blend of maybe 2/3 colonials, 1/3 ranch homes. And now we're finally starting to see many ranch communities that are starting to be built. And we're way overdue on that. But the demand is still outpacing what's being built. But it is starting to change a little bit. And I think the boomers have a big hand in that demand now moving forward.
Well, I mean, there's always been a generation that has kind of gotten its way.
Yes.
And I guess it's going to, in this too, it's going to kind of force that change. Because another thing that, I had taken a look at is, again, from the National Association of Realtors, saying, and I think you're speaking exactly to this, they don't necessarily want to live in one of these kind of, gated, independent, all retirees live here communities. They like being part of the community as a whole. They want a community center, they want fitness, they want all these things, but they don't want to kind of be in their own little silo. And it sounds to me like you're seeing that being addressed.
We are, and I love this question. I can't believe you brought it up, because it's a topic that doesn't get much attention. So you've got your Del Webb communities, which are great communities. We have clients that just absolutely love them. They've got all the amenities, people are active, they're social, it's very cool. But we're also seeing there are, the baby boomers are getting younger. As funny as that sounds, they're getting more mobile. They're more connected from a tech standpoint. They're traveling. They're more active physically, and they want to be in communities where there's younger people and blends of families. And a great example of this, my dad, he's a young 94, and he lives in a northern Michigan town, and his group of friends for years has covered every age bracket, and so he did so many social things with people that were 40, 50 years younger than he was. I am convinced that is what has kept him younger than the rest of his peers, is having that social interaction with blended generations. And I think we're going to see more and more of that over time as we move forward. I really do.
Well, and it's interesting to hear a couple of, at least another one, if not two quick questions. How does the financial stability or ability of boomers impact the market right now? Are they able to kind of push other other generations out of their way because they've got buying power other ones don't?
They can, and especially what we see in many multiple offer situations, especially if it's a ranch home, the boomers are paying cash for those, or a heavy down payment conventional mortgage, where younger, millennials and Gen Xers may be a low down payment FHA or lower down payment conventional mortgage, and they just don't have a chance against the buying power of the boomers in many instances.
Especially right now, if and when there is a multiple bid situation, cash is king.
Yes,
and
it is.
That'll do it. Last thing on this particular topic, in the state of Michigan, it's fairly common for those boomers to go find residence someplace else, like Florida, where the sun shines, and things of that nature.
We're used to that.
But you're noticing a trend with these folks that have been heading south. What are you starting to see?
We're starting to see people actually coming back, because if they leave and they don't have any grandchildren when they move to Florida, when that first grandchild is born or second, all of a sudden I call the grandchildren the big magnets, the babies. And they're actually coming back, buying another condo, and to be closer to their children and their grandchildren.
Interesting. So you call them magnets. I think I'm going to call it a boomerang effect here.
Ooh,
but either way. So we're talking with Randy Miller. He's an associate broker at RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston. After a short break, we're going to switch gears and talk about how to set your home apart when selling. And we know that buying or selling your home can be a little stressful. After all, you don't do this every day, but RE/MAX agents do. In fact, RE/MAX agents have done this a million times. We've got the experience to negotiate on your behalf and help you go from for sale to sold. To find properties or an agent near you, go to remaxrealestateinsights.com. Stay tuned for more here on 760 WJR. You are listening to RE/MAX Real Estate Insights, and I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider. We're starting to see more homes coming on the market, and if you're selling now, or you will be, you want to be sure your home is positioned to make a great first impression so you can sell in the shortest amount of time and at the best possible price. Before you do some touch-up work or some quick projects to make your home show-worthy, however, we've got some key tips to help you focus your time and money where it matters most these days. Back with me is Randy Miller. He's an associate broker at RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston. So, Randy, we've been in a seller's market for a few years now, but I would assume that even in a seller's market, to get the best price and terms, you need to have your home stand out. Is that a fair statement?
It really is.
Okay, and you've got some key suggestions to help folks do that. So let's start with which rooms are the most critical, in your opinion, to get right.
Okay. Kitchens and baths are always the most critical. That's where you get the most bang for your buck.
Is that where you see people kind of linger when they're coming in and looking at a home?
Definitely. And that's the first place usually the wife or the female wants to go, is to that kitchen. So you just cannot go wrong with kitchens and baths. And many of the homes we see that are owned by the boomers are immaculate. They've been beautifully maintained, but they may be outdated because they were happy to live with it the way it was. They loved it that way. And some people may disagree, but we see our clients always getting back the investment of the money that they put into the kitchens and baths, and usually then some. And more The most important thing, too, is marketability.
Right.
So by having those things updated and fresh and new and clean, just the way that the home is going to show on the listing and is going to photograph, just makes the marketability so much more valuable.
And yeah, you hit a big one, which is photograph, because everybody's looking at photos and you want those to pop. So what I hear you saying is that, you know, boomers, they're tidy and they have clean homes, and, you know, and all that, but they might be a little dated. And you kind of hinted at this, but does it make financial sense then for them to, I don't necessarily do a full remodel, but do some upgrading and do some enhancements? Does it make financial sense for them to do that?
It almost always does. And we've gotten a little bit spoiled because the market, it's been such a seller's market for so long now. And there's many homes that have sold without the aid of being updated.
Right.
But that is going to start to change when the market starts to adjust. But what we do is we always do, if a home really needs a lot of updating, we'll do a market analysis for its present condition and then we'll do another market analysis for our clients, showing what it's worth in remodeled or updated condition. And we also have a custom trusted contractor that we'll bring in to give an estimate to do those things for them, so they know that they're getting someone that's honest and trusted. And I can give you a great example of a condo that we sold in Troy last year, and we did a market analysis based on its present condition and on the post-remodel analysis for that condition. And the number of, there were so many condo sales in that development that the market analysis was crystal clear. I mean, there was no disputing it. And so we had our client, they put about $15,000 into the remodel, and they actually ended up profiting about $43,000 more after their costs of putting it in than they would have without the remodel. Now, that's a dramatic case, and they're not all going to be that way, but many can be. And updates can be as simple as light fixtures, door handles, the kitchen knobs, and new paint. This one got new baths, new kitchen as well, but the cost was pretty darn reasonable, and what they profited was well worth it.
It certainly was, because I'll admit, if somebody came to me and said, I want you to put $15,000 into the house I'm getting ready to sell, I'd probably have a hard time getting on board with that. But if you can come to me and show me and say, okay, but here's why I'm suggesting this, and this is what the market tells me will happen if we do this, you could probably get me on board, because I'm again one of those people that I can't visualize well what a home looks like. I'm not, and I think that is another part of it, is people have a hard time visualizing, and I know I'm like that. My husband needs to put it up on the computer. He's an architect, so he can put stuff up on the computer for me, and when I can see it, I can buy into it. But you say many buyers can't visualize very well, can they?
You are not alone, Jeanette.
Well, that's good to know. I'm not crazy.
Many buyers can't see through that, and so visualizing what it's going to look like is difficult for a lot of people, and sometimes all it takes is the light fixtures, some fresh new plumbing fixtures, paint, carpet, countertops, and it's a completely different home. But getting people, and we tell our clients that most buyers cannot visualize the difference, the new home. So that's why it's really important for us to do this now. And, we suggest that, it's going to pay for itself and then some.
And then some. And I think another reason to do some of these types of things is not only can people not visualize it, my impression is, from everything that I've read and what I hear, is that folks don't want to tackle the home improvement projects like maybe people used to. It used to be kind of fun. Oh, we'll tackle this. We'll do it ourselves, and we'll paint and we'll do all this. And maybe the people buying homes today are kind of like, no, I got work and other stuff. I'd rather just buy it turnkey.
You bet. And they want to stay more mobile. They want to, they're traveling, they're having more fun. If they're a young family, their kids are busy. And so that is very true.
Okay. So you mentioned several different things that people can do, paint, lighting fixtures, plumbing fixtures. I know each home is going to stand on its own merits. Every home is going to bring its own unique set of pros and cons. But in general term, is there one update that you can kind of point to and say, okay, somewhat universally, this is one I would recommend? Okay.
That's a great question. Paint and wallpaper removal can be one of the cheapest and easiest large-scale fixes throughout a home, in the grand scheme. Neutral colors that's huge. Gray is the new beige, and my wife Jennifer just absolutely loves gray. And so if a house has outdated colors, just the change in appearance and brightness can just be huge. And for an example, my wife Jennifer is a certified property stager, and she works side by side with our clients to choose colors. She will give them recommendations on fixtures. She'll give them the prices for that. And then many times we'll bring our contractor in to piggyback on that and tell them what it's going to cost. And then carpeting and flooring can be a dramatic change too.
Sure.
And many times the cost of that is really not as big as some people may think it is. We'll bring our carpet people in and give people a quote, and they're usually surprised that it's pretty darn reasonable. So kitchens, baths are your biggest tickets along with roofs if it happens they need a new roof. But we think the paint and removal of wallpaper can be the biggest change for the least amount of money.
For the bang for the buck there. Quick thing on roofs, I had to laugh because our first home we had to put a new roof on. The second home we had to pay to get it put on for the next people. So I'm convinced this time I'm getting out before I have to deal with this on either side of buying or selling. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you mentioned staging. So I'm going to guess that you're a proponent of staging. What do you say to someone who doesn't maybe think their home needs it or they're a little leery of that? Kind of how do you address that with clients?
You have to be very diplomatic in many of those cases because you're talking about someone's home.
Their pride and joy.
Their pride and joy, and they may have a lot of stuff. So you have to be very, very sensitive to that, and telling them that their home needs staging, is... At the end of the day, we're paid to be honest with our clients or potential clients. So we have to be honest with them. You just have to do it delicately. But staging can vary by degree. As you mentioned, each house can stand on its own merits, and some need more than others. And then there are the homes that are just impeccable. They're beautifully decorated like they came out of Home and Garden magazine, but those are few and far between. So, most homes can stand to have some degree of staging, and which many times it can just be done with the things that they have.
And just reorganizing things for the flow to be a little bit better.
Yes.
One of the things I think all homes can benefit from is decluttering. So talk to us a little bit about that. If they're not one of the immaculate model-ready homes, what do people need to know about that?
Oh, that's an enormous question. And declutter and donate is what we say. And some of the homes we see, there's a lot of stuff in them. And that can also be a big challenge, Jeanette, between the spouses, because if the husband has a workshop that's full of stuff that he enjoys, and, the wife is saying, you need to get rid of that. Yes, to her, it's junk. To him, it's prized possessions. So, that can be a challenge, but it's so important. And in fact, we have a company that we refer out that will do complete clean outs of homes. And they actually they have sources that will buy certain items of value. And many times they can go in, completely clean out and declutter a home. And a lot of that cost can be offset by things that they can arrange to be sold for them. But this is another instance of people cannot see through things. They can't see through all the clutter. And to open up that floor space, open up the wall space and the rooms as much as possible is it's so important.
It makes such a big difference.
Yes.
Well, thanks to Randy Miller, an associate broker with RE/MAX Encore in Clarkston, for sharing so much great information. We really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's always fun.
Good. Coming up next, we're talking tax assessments. If you've recently received your assessment and have questions about how to dispute it, we have an agent that has what you need to know about the process to be as prepared as possible. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more RE/MAX Real Estate Insights coming up here on 760 WJR.